So we've got a few minutes before lunch to inspire this audience further about the STEP project. We've heard from David before about the sort of science of it and how it's going to work. And I'd love to know just a bit more about where it came from, what it's going to achieve for this audience, who are all kind of, I suppose, different levels of understanding and expertise and interest in what STEP could do for their particular purpose, right? So maybe, Paul, I can start with you. Just so we're all on the same page, just tell me where the STEP program came from, given the sort of long history of the UK in things like JET and other fusion experiments. Where did STEP come from?
Sure. Well, firstly, it's a brilliant idea by Ian Chapman, and that's not a bad thing to take forward in life, actually. So, more the underpinnings of it comes from the fact that UK AEA has got this rich and long history in analysing fusion energy and its potential. And out of that, some years ago, there was a realisation that actually, if you follow the trajectory of JET and then larger to ITER, when you get to effective power plant scale, you could end up with something that's very, very large indeed. And whilst that might technically work, there was a much bigger question about whether that would be economic. So the question is raised, look, could you shrink the potential size of the device itself? And so UK AEA embarked on a series of research programs, put a small machine together called START way back in the 90s. And that basically demonstrated the potential for a smaller spherical tokamak to be more efficient. And effectively that, and what's been built on subsequently with the MAST program, demonstrates that there is a route to effective commercial fusion energy through that, and STEP builds on that and the practical experience of JET.
And just one other tiny question. I mean, obviously ITER, the biggest fusion project in the world, has been in the planning and construction for decades now. Britain's involved. Many, many great scientists from JET and other places are involved. Why do the UK need its own fusion power plant? I mean, just for the innocent out there, isn't it the point that ITER does all of that, and then other countries will take it on to power plant status?
Well, let me give you a technical reason and then an economic reason. So technically, ITER doesn't do all of that. ITER will demonstrate thermal gain, but it doesn't put electricity on the grid. It's not fuel self-sufficient in terms of tritium. And unless you have both those two things and a sensible route to maintainability and availability of the plant, you don't have a commercial proposition. So ITER is not a commercial.
So we need the expertise and the facilities to be able to take whatever comes from ITER and turn it into something.
Well, not even just take what comes from ITER, but leapfrog that and take the learning out of the supply chain. So that's the technical reason. It's aiming at a different point. The economic reason is, look, and we've heard it in the plenary sessions this morning, if we can't get fusion energy at a price point ultimately that puts it on the grid and complementary to other energy sources in the future, we don't solve the climate crisis. And if we don't do that, we don't generate economic value. And as the minister's just said, the economic value is here and now. And that is not realizable in the same way if you have an international science program as it is if you have a national program that is focused on generating economic return. And that's what STEP is.
David, can I come to you? So you're the Chief Executive of Bassetlaw District Council, which is, so it's under your planning and all these regulations that all of this is going to happen. How often is it that you get such an advanced project in your bailiwick? I mean, I assume you've got some history in this.
Strangely enough, it does go back a long time. I mean, this is once in a lifetime, and it is analogous to when the coal-fired power stations came to the Trent Valley area 50 years ago. That was something which led to a significant change in both the sort of the dynamic of the area, but the job opportunities. We were looking at what was going to happen once those power stations were decommissioned. And when STEP came onto the horizon, it was a significant opportunity not to be missed. So this is something that I think will both outlast my career and probably my successors' careers. It's a fantastic opportunity, and we're so pleased and proud that we've managed to land it within the area, not just for ourselves, but for all these sort of neighbouring authorities.
Yeah, and I guess a question for both of you, maybe Paul, I can ask you first. Famously for a long time in this country, we've found it very difficult to build anything. So this is a very complicated thing to build.
Yeah.
How do you sort of work with the sort of people who decide whether you can actually put some boots on the ground and buildings on there. How do you work with them to make sure that actually that they're on board with you? I mean, we've heard that obviously jobs are important, planning for the future is obviously important. This has always been important, but it's also very difficult to get around people's sort of a bit of NIMBYism and things like that.
Look, shared vision is the start and end of it, I would say. And the vision for fusion is that it works and we can address part of the climate crisis with it, but also that economically it works for everybody that's involved. And that's really what's galvanized an incredible and cohesive local community and set of stakeholders around STEP. I mean, we went out in the siting process in 2020, 21. And rather than saying, oh, it's going to be here, we actually asked for nominations across the country. So people came forward wanting to be part of this, and they wanted to be part of it because they could see what it was going to do in terms of positive impact for the climate. They could see what it was going to do in terms of positive impact for their region, and as Dave says, their children, their children's children. And if you can get people on the same page, on the same vision, then actually life becomes a lot easier. And that is right behind the drive and coherence that we've got to get this thing done in the time we need to get it done.
David, talk me through the kinds of things that you see this project doing for not only the successive generations of where you are, but also in the region. What specific things are you hoping for?
Okay, I think I'll probably go back a step as part of the process. Sorry, I've done it already, haven't I? The start of this process, that we were already talking to local communities about the future opportunities that the power station sites provided. So there was a growing sort of conversation taking place, and there was a really clear understanding that one of the things we needed to do was to look at skill levels locally, because the power stations were some of the significant providers of jobs. They supported lots of business in the area, and there was a concern how that was going to be reflected. But also, they were very large sites, and don't forget these things are actually sort of very dominant in the landscape. People were really welcoming of the opportunity to think about future processes on those sort of sites. So having done that, we were able to engage with those communities and start to sort of to feed in these sort of opportunities. And I think it was amazing. We actually had one public meeting where it was famously reported, we want nuclear, not solar. Now, that is the change of perception we've had locally. And what we're now trying to do is to work through the process, looking at not only the West Burton site, but the opportunities it provides as a catalyst for the other power station sites, how that can be something which starts to get lots of people engaged in thinking about future careers. We've opened a fusion energy cafe in Worksop, which is not the sort of place you would expect someone to be sitting around talking about skills in the nuclear industry, but it's starting to get people thinking at a very young age that there is a real possibility of a future career, not just in STEP, but in other high technology industries. All those processes are now becoming things that are, at a local level, starting to make a difference.
So does that mean you're engaging with primary school students,
absolutely,
and high school students, getting them in?
That's very important that there is somewhere to do that, because there won't be anything on the West Burton site for years. They're still blowing things up there at the moment. So
that's quite good for primary school students.
It is interesting, but it's very quick and it's over with quite quickly, isn't it? So, but there needs to be something to engage people, and there will be other things coming forward. But having processes, and there are a number of the STEP team who are regularly out engaging with primary school children, really sort of explaining the opportunities and why STEM subjects are important to them. And the sort of the joke that I use that never works with physicists is that STEP can't exist in a vacuum. It's got to be something which is actually sitting within a much wider framework. It's not simply about the planning process, it's a cultural thing as well. And part of the role I play in this is ensuring that people who are looking at future careers, people who may be involved in supply chains in all the sort of various different ways, understand the opportunities. And then how that then feeds into opportunities on the other sites, because there may possibly be things taking place on some of the other power station sites that happen before STEP, because they've seen the opportunity that's arising. And the other sort of thing I think is important there, Culham is a very interesting site, and I did work there a long time ago, but it's a very constrained former airfield site. West Burton's 4 times as big as Culham. We've got 3 West Burtons. There's lots of land, there's lots of opportunities. It's a really exciting time.
That is a very good physics joke, by the way. Please use it again. I like it. Paul, on the sort of engaging with the community aspect of it, which I find quite fascinating, because without them for many generations, this is not going to work, right?
Absolutely.
And it sounds like you're doing that. But what kinds of things are the sort of scientists and engineers on your site how interested are they in just going out and talking to people who have no idea about fusion to sort of sell the idea to them?
Hugely. Try and stop them. I mean, the best advocates that we've got are the team. They really are passionate about what we're doing, but also about getting everybody else to understand what we're doing. And so we actually, not that many of them need it, but we put quite a few of our team through media training in order that they can more confidently and comfortably go out and speak at all levels, actually. But they love doing engagement with the community and with school kids, and really getting them excited about whether it's the outcome for energy, whether it's the physics, whether it's all the raft of skills and things that are going to be needed to make this work. So we use the team to the maximum possible extent to go out and sell this. And of course, the other point is, it's all very well to a dry chief executive answering these questions, but when you've got, the scientists who can really get into it and get passionate about it, you find that they begin to bring people on board in a far more effective way.
I'm going to come to the audience for questions in just one moment. I'm going to ask one more question. If you've got questions, please put your hands up and we'll get some microphones to you. So you've got a few minutes to ask. There's a question here at the front if someone can get the microphone over. Is there anything else? Anyone else? Have a think. So I can hear that there's a real interaction between the technology, the locality, the people of all different types. I mean, I just wonder, is this something how do you sell it? Is it something that's just very high tech and exciting for that reason, or is the argument about climate change and the potential solutions of that more sort of interesting to people? What do people really respond to when you tell them about something like this?
Well, I mean, I'll go first, Dave, but I think there's two components to this. So the first is, I think those 2 points you've made come together. So I think addressing the climate crisis and doing something that's new and exciting and cool, and it's both of those things, really motivate people. I mean, people want purpose. We find that in our team. That's why people come to work. People want purpose more generally. So that's the number one engagement point. But from a local perspective, we've definitely seen that also people want high quality, high worth jobs in their locality. They want a future. They want some hope. And I think we owe it to them to deliver on that promise now.
David?
Yeah, no, I'd really echo that. As the history of the area, certainly for the past 50 to 100 years, has been built on power generation through coal. There are a lot of skills within those sectors that are totally transferable. So a lot of the construction jobs that are going to be required will be things that people within the local area can pick up. And I think that's starting to dawn on people, that it isn't all about very, very high technology jobs. The vast majority of people who will work within the industry and the sector will be doing things which are development of the sort of existing sort of roles that are well known in the area, in construction and things like that. But also those sort of things that are accessible to people. And that opportunity that is seen now, this is something that's going to be real. This will make a difference. We do have an issue with housing affordability in our area. It's not because the houses are expensive, it's because incomes are low. If we can get people into higher skilled jobs and better paid jobs, that will make a significant difference. And there's a real local perception of wanting to see that driven forward and making the most of that opportunity.
Fantastic. Okay, there's a question here at the front, I think. Please let us know who you are. And if there's any other questions, please do put your hands up now. You've got a couple of minutes. There's one there.
Okay.
Yep.
Sorry, I won't take too long. It's Isabel Devan. I'm at the Carbon Trust. For my sins, I was responsible for skills when I was at Renewable UK and Engineering UK. So, and the UK has one of the largest gaps when it comes to engineers. We need over 140,000 engineers across the energy transition and etc. So what would you say to government? Of course, I was interested in the presentation about what they need to be doing more, because what we have is a very undiverse, uninterested group of kids at schools that are not really focusing on STEM, which is the first step to get to where they need to, vocational or otherwise. What would you like government to do?
Yeah, okay. So look, the first thing, and the minister did mention the Foster programme, which is a very overt, and it won't stop there, but that's an overt intervention into try and boost skills. If you like, that's an input measure. But the number one thing that people need is demand, right? So skills will follow demand. So if we can be solid behind the STEP program, if we can be solid behind other major technology and infrastructure programs, then actually it's surprising the extent to which the market will begin to sort itself out, and which people will say, okay, you're not just telling me to go and be an engineer or a physicist or a program manager or a construction worker. Yeah, I can sort of see that. But you're telling me that project in that place at that time is going to be real. And you have to make these things real. You have to make them real for industry to get on board. You have to make them real for investors to get on board and put their money behind them. And you have to make them real for the people that are going to work on it. So I think whilst the supply side of this is really important, it's not as important as the demand side. So stability in big program demand is the number one for me.
Yeah, I think part of the skills program is that realization that this is coming and the opportunities arise. And I think what's really important to understand is that within an hour's drive time of West Burton, there are 2.1 million people. Some of those areas are ones which have, over time, experienced quite significant change, but they are very adaptable. So the change in the steel industry in the likes of North Lincolnshire and Sheffield and Rotherham has driven people into other areas. That has happened. People have adapted to that. So I do think as this process becomes more and more developed, you will see that opportunity is grasped by people.
Gentleman over here.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, I'm just generally interested in what you're doing to, well, this project in general just sounds awesome. And yeah, I mean, I don't know whether you know about Copenhagen in Denmark, but it's a power station where they have a ski slope and a climbing wall on it.
Yeah.
And kind of making it like a center of just like drawing attention to why renewable energy power generation is good. And I'm just wondering, like, are you guys thinking about how you can sort of continue to get community adoption or interest in this?
Can you tell us who you are, by the way, as well?
My name's John. I'm a software engineer. I'm just looking to move into the sector. So
Fantastic.
Yeah.
The answer is yes. And what we want to do actually is, and we already are, is engage the local community in coming up with those bright ideas. You know, is it a ski slope on top? Is it a golf course round the various parts of the building sites or whatever it is? There has to be some engagement there, not just a thing that looks necessarily cool, but doesn't relate to the local community. So we are and will getting the community engaged, and they're coming up with all sorts of ideas.
And I think that's the first thing that's going to happen is community engagement on the site. Something like a visitor centre will probably be the first physical building of any sort of scale on there, and it needs to have that sort of wow factor to get people there, as well as, oh, and by the way, there's going to be a fusion scheme just down the road. But yeah.
Well, thank you very much for both of you, Paul and David, for that. It was fascinating. I look forward to the ski centre on top of the fusion plant.
Yeah.
But thank you very much.